Imagine when you share your darkest hours, they become someone else's light. I'm Jennifer Lee, a global community storyteller, host, author, and survivor, guiding you through genuine, unfiltered conversations. Together, we break the silence, shatter stigma, and amplify voices that need to be heard. Each episode stands as a testament to survival, healing, and reclaiming your power. Listen to I Need Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite platform. Learn more at www.ineedblue.net. Trigger warning: I Need Blue shares real-life stories of trauma, violence, and abuse meant to empower and support. Please take care of yourself and ask for help if needed. Now let's begin today's story. It's an absolute honor to introduce today's guest, Molly. We first crossed paths in a networking group where I had the chance to witness her passion and talent as an entrepreneur, videographer, and photographer. She's a proud wife, a bonus mom, and a new mother to a beautiful little boy. Huge congratulations, Molly. Now, living in sunny Florida, where the heat often calls for short sleeves or sleeveless tops, I noticed something that caught my attention during our meetings. As I sat across from Molly, I saw the scars on her arms. They weren't just marks. They were the kind of scars many tried to hide. But Molly wore them with strength. They were a silent testament to her resilience. I sat with that, knowing each cut had an emotion, a story, a cry for help. I also thought, you go, girl. You're not afraid to show the world the remnants of what you've been through. I'm proud of you. A few months later, I felt an overwhelming desire to contact Molly and invite her to share her story. Today, she's here with us. Molly, thank you for showing your courage and sharing your story today. Thank you for being you, and welcome to the I Need Blue podcast.
Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing with this, just the space you're creating for people to share and find community.
You're so welcome. Before we get started with your story, how are you? How is it being a new mom?
I am doing better than I expected I would be. He was due January 22nd. My water broke on November 23rd, and I had the emergency C-section on November 25th. And so we welcomed him at 11:41 in the morning, 2 months early.
He is thriving. I saw your post on Facebook that you had about 3 hours ago.
Yeah, so he's been being tube fed for the first week of his life. And in the next couple days, we can start working on feeding through the mouth. And by the time he's just discharged to come home with us, he has to be taking all his meals by mouth. Starting work on that is super exciting. He's breathing on his own. He's regulating his temperature a little bit more each day. So it's exciting to see him grow and see him doing so well. He's honestly doing better than anyone would have expected.
That's amazing. Well, he's got fighters for parents as we share your story today. But you are beautiful. And how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Honestly, just keeping my mind busy, letting my body rest, which is harder done than said.
Right, because you had the C-section, which is 6 weeks healing, right?
Yeah, so I am not allowed to drive for the first 2 weeks at least. And then I'll check in with the doctor who delivered him and see if I'm cleared for more activity or kind of how it's going then. But I feel pretty good. Still sore, still achy, but I'm getting around. So
Of course. And I can't wait to hug you, and I can't wait to hug the little guy. I think everybody in Ladies Ablaze, we're all like, oh, that's just so beautiful. We can't wait to hold him.
just the support from like the ladies ablaze, just everybody's so amazing and so wonderful.
It is my favorite. It's perfectly said when they say small but mighty.
Yes.
In our conversation, we kind of talked a little bit about your childhood. Now, I will say gymnastics, I used to watch it in the Olympics, and I was like, "Oh, I really wanna do that." And I got to where I could do a cartwheel, and that's as far as I got.
Okay, well, cartwheels are difficult. You'd be surprised how hard it is to learn just a cartwheel. Props to you. Good job.
Thank you. I can no longer do a cartwheel, but but I can say I did once upon a time. But your childhood, you were very passionate and you loved gymnastics.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, tell us about that.
When I was a kid, I competed up through the end of sixth grade. I was training level 5 when I quit, which is about halfway through the non professional levels. I was training in the gym 20 hours a week by the time I quit. So I went to school, I went to the gym, and on weekends, we'd travel all over to compete during the season. It was my life. I lived, breathed, and ate gymnastics. And a couple years ago, I spent a few years actually coaching gymnasts at the same gym I competed at in my childhood.
Wow, so you brought that full circle. That's great.
No, it was really awesome being able to step back into the gym kind of more in a leadership role, kind of helping guide and nurture and empower these kids to learn about themselves, learn how to support others, learn how to use their bodies to move, to emote. And it's just really, really fulfilling.
I love that. Obviously, at that young age, you were very dedicated, and you were supported, obviously, through your parents because you couldn't drive yourself there and whatnot. But you said that then, you had to stop. Yeah, what happened with that?
Honestly, it was all mental. I had so many mental blocks. I couldn't pull myself out of them. And I kind of let my fear stop me. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I did step back and I did retire at that point.
Looking back, do you think there was something that triggered those thoughts that came in your mind? And do you remember maybe what one of them was?
I think a lot of it was related to my outside life because my parents divorced when I was about 9 years old. So this is about 3 years later. I had just turned 12. At that age, you're really starting to see more, realize more, understand more. And, I was transitioning into middle school. I was just totally overwhelmed. And I feel like what caused it, quitting gymnastics, was probably the worst decision I could have made at that point. Hindsight's 2020.
Right. But at 12, you just reacted to, I bet, how many 12-year-olds would react.
It's a chaotic time. Like my stepdaughter, she's 11 right now. So I'm seeing her kind of starting to go through all the changes.
Yeah. Let me ask you quickly. So, what is it like then for you to witness your stepdaughter and know what it was like for you at 12? Has it adjusted conversations you have?
I definitely hold that like really close when I think about handling her, conversing with her, parenting her. I want to make it really clear like, look, I'm not your mom, but I'm the motherly figure in this household. She's with us a majority of the time. usually I'm the one taking her to school, picking her up from school, doing all the things. And her and I are really close, and I'm so thankful for that.
Now, going back to you, you were in middle school, having all of these thoughts of, I can't do it. What emotions were you feeling at that time?
I felt very isolated. The middle school I went into, most of my elementary school friends went to a different middle school. So I felt very isolated. I felt very lonely. I had found a group of friends at this middle school, but I feel like we didn't have the history and the past, and I was seeing everybody else still hanging out and doing their thing. And I'm just kind of over here like, hi. A lot of my close friendships were in the gym. And once I retired, I really didn't keep those connections either. I no longer have them anymore. And I was just starting to feel more hopeless, feeling alone, feeling like I have to just pull my bootstraps up and keep going and keep working and get good grades and stay strong for my sister and not let anybody know because everyone goes through it. So I just got to get through it.
You know, we all put on that happy face, but inside we're just crying.
Yeah. Over the course of like seventh, eighth grade, I became introduced to the thought of self harm. And it started out as like little pencil scratches and then just kind of escalated from there over the next year or so.
Yeah, and when you say the word introduced, what did that look like for you?
I can't remember if it was just hearing about it through the grapevine at school or on the internet, probably a combination of both. I heard about it, it was kind of in my headspace. I remember for a while I knew about it, but like I couldn't think about bringing myself to do it. And I think one day it was in like my home economics class. I was like having a panic attack and snapping the rubber band against my wrist, like digging my fingernails in, just trying to stop the panic attack however I could. And that was kind of how I did it.
Did you find community in that? Were there other people you found that were also resorting to dealing with their distress that way?
No, I didn't tell anyone. I kind of kept it to myself. I feel like I didn't want people to know because I already felt kind of so to the side. I felt like I had to work so hard just to keep up appearances and keep these few friendships that I had. That was my little secret. That was like a shameful thing. Like I have to do this to try and calm myself down and eventually turn into I'm not worthy. I deserve this. This helps. Like, I don't know what to do besides this. It just became how I expressed my frustration, my depression, my hurt.
Yeah. And I had seen the marks on your arms. Were there other areas?
Yeah. So my upper arms, my forearms, all up and down my thighs. There's a few on my stomach. If I ran out of room on one arm, I'd just move over. And it got really bad. By my freshman year of high school, I'd be at school and I'd like be wearing leggings and like just from walking around or like I'd go in the bathroom and I'd take a little razor blade out. I'd just walk around the school with like blood matted leggings because I couldn't make it through the day without finding that release.
Wow. Did you do it to feel like pain?
Yeah, but it also felt good in a way too. Yeah, it was that release. I feel like that was like some sort of control. It was something I could control. That felt good to me.
Yep. Let me ask you if this makes sense to you. There was a time when I did not want to have to feel all my emotions. So I went and got my belly button pierced, and they literally just shoved it through the skin. and it hurt. But I longed for the physical pain to distract me from the emotional pain that I was feeling inside.
Yep, that's exactly it.
That's exactly it.
Form of pain to distract me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand.
I feel like a lot of people do in their own way. I feel like a lot of people mask or hide or distract from the real pain and the real problem because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. So they just mask and distract and use some other form of pain to distract from the actual problem, from the actual healing that needs to be done.
So you figured out how to hide it from friends and at school.
Yeah,
How about hiding it from your parents?
I did a really good job at that for a while. And it was actually my freshman year of high school in the fall. So this was kind of before it got to the point where the cuts were everywhere. It was still on my forearm. There was probably like a 4-inch space that was just red all over. And I'd wear these rubber bracelets over there 24/7. I had the bracelets on and they kind of covered it up. One day in gym class, I had two friends, Jessica and Colin, and I was sitting in the corner crying, trying for no one to notice me, but they noticed me and they came over and they talked to me. And they were the first people I told about what was going on. They went to the gym teacher, my swim coach, were like, hey, this is happening. Like, we feel like somebody needs to know. And so that's how my dad found out. Like, he was told by one of the teachers. The way he confronted me about that was he asked me to move my bracelets. And I said, no. And we went back and forth a little bit until he just grabbed my arm and just moved them down himself. And then he just cried. Yeah. So after that, I started therapy. But ultimately, by January of my freshman year, I was Baker acted because nothing was working. They put me on voluntary hold, which was really them saying, sign this or we'll keep you here for a minimum of 30 days. So I was there for 5 days while my parents worked on finding a residential facility for me to get treatment at.
Can you explain for the audience what it means to be Baker acted?
Yeah, so a Baker Act is basically up to like a 72-hour psychiatric hold. So it's basically like a mental health crisis facility. If you're a danger to yourself or others, you can be put in a Baker Act facility for up to 72 hours for that psychiatric hold. And the premise is that in those 72 hours, you'll come down off the edge of hurting yourself or hurting someone else, and you can go. But most often, what happens in there is doctors are rude. You just sit and watch the same drug and mental health films for hours on end. You get quiet time, very much not like a therapeutic setting. And it's not meant to be, it's just meant to hold you there until you're gone.
Well, that sounds kind of sad.
It is. And I was Baker acted a total of 3 times in high school. And I think the youngest child I saw there was 7 years old.
Wow.
And that was just heartbreaking. Like, there's no reason a 7-year-old should be in there. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like,
So for you, had it then transitioned from the cutting to suicidal thoughts?
I think the suicidal thoughts were kind of already there, like starting freshman year out. And they just grew and compounded and grew and compounded. And I think over winter break, I tried to like run out in traffic and get hit by a car. And thinking back, like, it's so stupid, but like I was just done. I was over it. It was like in the moment, I don't want this anymore. And I was fine. I got back up and went home and pretended like nothing happened.
So you've been Baker acted a few times. You said they were trying to find a residential treatment program for you. And this is while you're in high school, right?
It was my freshman year of high school. I was 13 at this point.
Wow. And did they end up finding?
Yes, I was admitted to La Amistad in February of my freshman year of high school. The problem they had was they needed to find a mental health facility because at that point, like, there was no substance abuse issues. So they needed to find a facility that would take me for just mental health. La Amistad, I think it's like in Lakeland or somewhere near Orlando, took me and I was admitted in February. So I lived there. I went to school there. They had dormitories. They kept the girls on one side, the boys on the other. And I was there for 6 weeks because that's what insurance would cover.
And did it help?
It did. After the first 3 weeks of me being super resistant and just trying to play the system, I finally realized I can't play the system here. Like, it's not going to work. Like, if I'm here, I might as well walk the walk. I'm going to be here anyways. There's nothing I can do. Like, just resisting it and having a miserable time isn't going to get me anywhere.
What was your day like?
So we would start our mornings with morning group. We had this little chant that we'd start group with every morning. This is group. No reading, no writing, no side conversations. I'll give you one warning, then ask you to leave with 2 or more days of freeze. And so we'd all say that together, go around and we'd make goals for the day, kind of talk about how we were feeling that day. And then we'd walk from the main room in the dormitories to the cafeteria for breakfast. We'd have like our uniforms to wear during the weekdays for school. It was like the navy and the tan shirt and pants. And so we'd walk over to the cafeteria, have our breakfast, and then the classrooms were in the same building as the cafeteria. So then we'd do our classes. And it was really cool actually because I could work at my own pace. I was in algebra 2, and then I ended up working ahead through like pre-calculus while I was there and learning like sociology and the normal subjects. But because of the kind of smaller classroom setting, I was able to have a much more individualized approach.
Sounds like it was a great step towards healing.
Yeah, we'd have outside time every day, usually like one structured activity, like we'd play like kickball, or we might go to the gym and play basketball. They had like ping pong tables out, just a big yard. So it was cool because bunch of different stuff. I really felt community there. So I really did connect with the other girls who were in the program and we supported each other. And I feel like that was huge for me too.
Yeah. So then when you had to leave in the 6 weeks, were you able to maintain your friendship with the girls and have that support? And did you take away coping skills then to help you?
Yeah, so we weren't allowed to exchange contact information outside of the facility. But I was able to find a couple of them once I did leave. There was this girl, Alexis, who was there with me, and she drew me like a picture because we'd have art therapy. So we do paintings and drawings and stuff. She drew me a little picture, and I still have it in a little box in my room. So like I still have some of the things that I gave the other girls, that the other girls gave me. So I think that's really neat that even though we couldn't stay in contact.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. And so some of the coping skills I was able to take away. Meditation was a big one because while I was there, that was my first introduction to meditation. I feel like that honestly like catapulted my spiritual journey, if not right away, it like just planted the seed. cognitive behavioral therapy, really being able to step back and look objectively, even if some of these kind of more in-depth processes weren't fully developed and reflexive, I knew enough to take away with me. And when I did go home, I was in an intensive outpatient program. So I had 6 to 8 hours of group and individual therapy each week with that program once I did transition back home.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What was life like then when you went home? Your parents are divorced. I think you said it was 50-50 custody. What was that like for you? How did that affect you in this whole journey?
It was rough. I was not ready to be discharged, and everyone knew that, but my insurance just wouldn't cover a longer stay. I went home. My dad was very much by the book, like, this is the instructions they gave us. We're going by this no matter what. My mom saw I was kind of struggling and we needed to do something different. So going like 1 week to 1 week was very hard for me just because of how differently I think they handled me being home. And I feel like at that point, my stepmom was really getting sick of me. I kind of was seeing more and more of kind of her little tricks and stuff. And she'd talk bad to me about my mom. And I felt like she was trying to make me think of my mom as this bad person and whatever else. So I was having outbursts and yelling and just not doing good at my dad's house at all. And I just wanted to not be there ever because it was bad when I was.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me, like, when you were at your dad's, like, even you weren't allowed to watch TV and what was it, have a phone.
Yeah.
Like, people at school had thought you died.
Yeah, they had. And I didn't find that out until the second half of my sophomore year when I actually returned to the same high school I started at. The rules, like at my mom's house, I didn't have a phone either. The main difference was I felt supported at my mom's house and I felt cut off at my dad's house. So I had no phone. I couldn't even email my friends, although I snuck it in. I had one friend that I would email back and forth, Aspen. Him and we actually mailed letters to each other when I was in residential. So that was really neat. I could only use the computer for schoolwork because I was in virtual school. I couldn't see my friends. I couldn't talk to my friends. I didn't have my phone. I could only watch TV shows with my parents. I couldn't watch TV on my own. I couldn't listen to music unless it was on the radio with my parents. So all these things, and I'm a very creative person. So like music and creative expression, like I really felt cut off. And so by the end of that summer, it was August, when I would have been starting my sophomore year of high school, my grandma came down to visit on my mom's side. And I convinced my parents to let me go back to Minnesota with her for a vacation for 10 days. So flew up with my grandma to Minnesota. And over those 10 days, I convinced my parents to let me stay for my sophomore year of high school.
Wow, that's quite a change.
Yeah. I think part of the reason my dad agreed to it was he didn't know how to deal with me. He really didn't. And I think I just finally wore him down to be like, okay, just stay there.
What was the thought process behind your parents, specifically your dad, in isolating you from all of the social media, from electronic devices?
Discharge recommendations from the rehab facility. And I think part of that was because they thought I wasn't ready to be discharged. So maybe they kind of wanted to keep that higher level of that. I agree. Some of that was necessary. Like there's moderation needed. Like it wouldn't have been a good idea to just give me Pinterest and whatever else to look up depressing quotes again. But I feel like there's some form of expression and autonomy that I really needed in a moderated way that I just felt cut off from.
Mm-hmm. Now you're with grandma.
Yeah, now I'm up in Minnesota with grandma, about to go back to a real school because that was the main thing. I wanted to go to school again. I didn't want to feel like the crazy old little kid who's trapped in a room with no access to the outside world. I didn't want that. I wanted to integrate back and be somewhat normal. So I was there. I joined the swim and dive team, which was great. Swim dinners every week. We'd travel and go to swim meets in different cities, tell scary stories on the way back in the bus. Took an engineering class, just kind of readjusted to being a normal kid. And it was amazing. I still had some of the same issues. Like I still was seeing a therapist up there. I was on medications at this point. In my opinion, too many. And I feel like that's part of the reason why I still wasn't kind of ascending to a higher level of healthy. I feel like I was stuck at I'm better than I was before, but I'm a zombie and I loved the improvement. I loved that I could feel somewhat normal, but I was still, I think, zombified from the medications.
Yeah. Now, being on the swim team, I imagine your scars were exposed.
Yes, they were.
Did anybody ask you about that?
I don't remember. I'm sure some people did, but I just went with it. I loved swimming. I loved diving, and I wasn't gonna let that stop me, even if I was still self-conscious, even if I wasn't ready. But I think at that point, because my dad, he made me wear long sleeves whenever I left the house. But when it was warm enough, I loved to wear t-shirts. I loved to wear what I wanted to wear what I was comfortable in. And I feel like that was kind of the starting point of owning it for me.
Good for you.
I had gone down to Florida Gulf Coast University for my first semester after high school graduation. And, I was away from everybody. I didn't really make friends. I knew a couple people, but I stopped taking my meds and I was getting Ritalin from one of the other kids. And I was just doing that all the time, staying up for days on end. I just went off the deep end a little bit. Yeah, I just kind of stopped caring about doing what the doctor said. I wasn't going to therapy. I wasn't going to classes. And I just kind of felt that way for a while.
And how did you pull yourself out?
I ended up coming back to Melbourne and I was just kind of house hopping around, here and there and everywhere and not really having a set plan. But in my heart, I was like, I want to go back to school. I want to get my degree. I want to do something like that. I had a camera at that point. I love taking pictures, kind of still holding on to the creative stuff, but I knew I wanted to go back to school and I wanted to do something. I just slowly started picking up the pieces and trying to get stuff back together. And I was renting a room in a trailer with a friend of mine who's still a good friend of mine today. Then I met my husband that fall after that. And I started working at the gym, just kind of finding myself piece by piece again. My now husband, he knew I loved photography. He knew I wanted to do that. So he really pushed me do it. You're good at it. Just do it. You can be a photographer. Then in 2022, before my 20th birthday, I started my LLC, Royal Horizon Visuals. And I just said, I'll figure it out, but this is what I'm doing now. It's still a journey. It still is, but little by little, I'm finding myself. I'm growing. And just looking back 10 years ago to today, from 12-year-old me to 22-year-old me, I don't think 12-year-old me even thought that the me today would be possible.
I think it's beautiful. And there's something you said that I wrote down That is so important. And it's piece by piece.
Piece by piece. Yep.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. You are a beautiful puzzle. And it's one piece at a time just produces this really beautiful picture, right? And when I look at you, that's what I see is this really beautiful picture. Each scar is a piece of that puzzle. You know, everything about you, all your experiences, your journeys have all become part of that beautiful puzzle. And I love that. That's such an important message that, you know, it's okay to do it one piece at a time. So many times we just focus on, I want to do the picture. You know, I want to put that picture that.
What's important too is because I feel like by the time we reach adulthood, right, there's so much trauma and so much that we've been through already. And I think it's important to remember that when you wake up in the morning, it's a fresh chance to rewrite your story, to flip the piece, to do a little bit better, to improve yourself a little bit in each day, in each hour, in each moment. It just takes like a choice to make that little piece a little brighter.
Absolutely. And you're a true testament to that. And I encourage people to please check out your socials. I've seen videos that you have done for friends of mine for their businesses. She owns a real estate company. Absolutely amazing. The creativity, it's eye catching. I couldn't do it. Like, I could never think of that. So it's great.
Thank you. Here to create.
Absolutely. Is there anything you would like our listeners to know in addition to what we've already talked about before we say goodbye today?
I mean, if anything, I'll just leave with a little message. Good and bad, happy and sad, they're two sides of the same coin. They're the same thing, just different sides of the spectrum. If you're sad, you can move the slider up to happy. It might not be easy. Just focus, and little by little, piece by piece, you can change your life for the better. So that's it.
Thank you for being my guest today, Molly, on the I Need Blue podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jen. I appreciate you so much.
Of course. And I want to thank all of you for listening. This is Jen Lee with the I Need Blue podcast. You can learn anything and everything about I Need Blue on my website, www.ineedblue.net. And remember, you are stronger than you think. Until next time.